I'm gonna make you
Go.
Hi, this is Pat with RacketStringTips.com. Thanks for coming back. In the last episode, we went ahead and mounted the racket on the stringing machine, and this time we're going to go ahead and install the main strings, and we're going to use a two-piece stringing pattern. It's a little simpler than the one-piece as we're getting started. Take a set of string, which is 40 feet. We're going to cut it exactly in half. You're going to need 20 feet when you're stringing the mains. We're going to go ahead and install those and practice putting them in the proper pattern. And then from there, what we'll do is we'll start working on adding tension and securing the strings. But for now, we're going to go ahead and just take a set and go from there. Okay, we're back. We went ahead and switched the frame, and so what we have is we have a set here, and what you're going to do first is you're going to go ahead and cut this. You know, get your handy cutters, and then we're going to go ahead and cut that and open that up. And this is going to be kind of important. What we're going to do, so basically a set generally is going to have a little tighten. It's going to be tightened in one area, and then that way, what you're going to do is you're going to put this in your left hand if you're right-handed. And what you're going to do is you're going to hold this, because what you don't want it to do, you don't want it to uncoil and kind of make a big mess. So basically you're going to hold the coil as you cut this. And you have to be careful so you're actually not going to be cutting the string. And you are cutting opposite, so generally you're not going to cut the string. But what you do is you can just make a gentle cut there. Kind of do that a few times until you get through there, and then as you can see I just cut that, right? So now I have my string, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take one of the ends and you're going to start uncoiling this slowly like this, and that way it won't twist, and basically it's just going to fall in a nice pattern and it's not going to twist up, because then what we're going to do is I'm going to basically take one end and take the other end and then find the center that way, because we want to cut it exactly in half, and this is the easiest way to do it. I've been doing it like this for years, and so now I'm going to take this end and then kind of just grab it in my hand and go like this, and so we've taken out a lot of the coil memory on that. So basically I'm just looking for the other end, and once I have the other end, I'm going to put them together, and then I'm going to go like this. Sometimes they get twisted up on stuff, but you just want to make sure that you have. Alright. So now I found the loop. So that's right in the middle. So I'm basically going to just cut the string in half, and now I'm going to put one half of the set away. I don't want to get them mixed up or have it get lost if you have a bunch of other strings laying around. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of gently coil it back up a little bit, because if I'm stringing a hybrid or I'm going to be doing the mains later or the crosses later, I want to have it easy to get to, and I don't want to have it a big mess. And it looks more professional too if people are around in your shop, or if you have string laying around. So okay, so I'm just going to put that aside. I'm going to grab my 20 feet that I now have, and that's going to be what we are going to start installing. Okay, thanks. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install the main strings. We're not going to pull tension today. What we're going to do is just practice getting it in the main strings, and get comfortable pulling string through, and making sure that it doesn't get hung up on things and so forth. So what we need to do first of all, because we're stringing the mains and we're going to tie off the mains when we're all done, and so what we want to do is we need to find the center point of the racket. So we need to find the loop. Sometimes the loop is on the bottom, sometimes the loop is on the top. It all depends on how many main strings you have. And in this case, the racket does say it has 16 mains and 19 crosses, because it is even. We're going to have, actually, the loop is going to be on the bottom. As you can tell, there were 6 holes in the throat. And so right now what we're going to do is we're going to weave the first two through. So basically you can see. Okay, and last time when we actually installed the racket, we made sure that the holes were not covered up by the center two mounting points. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the string, I'm going to find both ends, because what I want to do, I can just pull, and then that way I get it centered exactly. This is the easiest way. So basically you're going to grab the two ends, and then you're just going to pull as you go. Make sure none of the string gets hung up on anything. And then we're going to go like that, and boom, now we have the string where it needs to be. And if you see, right now we have the center loop right down here, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to start on one side, and in this case it really doesn't matter if you start on the left or the right. You might find a preference for yourself and always start on one side, especially if you're stringing a couple rackets and they're the exact same frame, and it's important to keep the tension exact. Let's say if that's the case, then, you know, say, hey, I'm going to always start on the left, or I'm always going to start on the right. But you know, that's just personal preference. So we're just going to go ahead and go to the next holes. And again, what I did, see this hole right now, this string does not have a sharp point, and really you want to have sharp points. So you're going to go ahead and take your cutters, and you're going to cut nice sharp point. And then you can grab the other end. Actually, if you have both ends still in your hand from when you tightened it, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut one there. So now you have 2 points, and they're actually going to be nice and sharp. So that way, when you pull the string through, it's going to be easier to go through the holes. Okay, so there you go. So in this case, again, today we're just practicing finding the correct holes and knowing where the cross holes are and so forth. And generally, when you look at a tennis racket, most of the holes are pretty much the same distance apart. As you get toward the outside of the frame, see right there, see how I created that little loop? You want to make sure that you don't have any of those kinds of loops. So basically you have to bring that string back. And you always want to be careful. Now this is nylon, solid core, basic synthetic string, and so it's pretty easy to work with. Polyester is a little bit more abrasive, it takes a little bit more effort. So that's why we're starting with this string as well, so it'll be a little bit easier. Now if you're handling natural gut, that's a whole nother thing, and I'll demonstrate that sometime as well, as far as the care that you have to take. But in this case, if it bends a little bit, it's not too bad, because it is just basic nylon. But you do want to be careful, and you want to establish good habits. So, you know, I always have like one hand on one part of the string when I'm pulling, and then that way I can kind of create the loops and make sure it doesn't get tangled up on stuff. So right now I pulled, basically I have 4 strings on one side. You don't want to string one half of the frame and be tightening it and then have no strings on this side, because then you're creating a lot of extra pressure on this side. So you want to kind of even that out, because remember, every time you pull, you're putting pressure on the frame. So we did 4. Sometimes you can do 2 on one side, go to the next side. In this case I did 4 on one side, so I'm going to go ahead and keep with that standard. So we'll go ahead and do 4 on this side and find the hole there. And then I went ahead and put it on the bottom, and see I'm pulling it. Now as I start pulling and I'm getting close to this, I'm going to go ahead and grab this loop and kind of undo it so it doesn't get all twisted up, because you don't want to untwist it by using the force of the frame as you're trying to undo this. So do it with your hands so it doesn't kink up, because you want to try to keep this as you basically just you don't want to create problems where you kink the string. So this kind of helps eliminate that, if that makes sense. So now I'm going to find this other hole. We're going to go through here, and I have the camera right in my way here, so I can't really go the other way very easily, so I'm going to go back this way. So right now I've got 3 on this side, so I'm going to go ahead and do 1 more. And so again, later on when we actually tighten this, I'm going to be just tightening 1 string at a time. But you know, this is how you can see. All right, so right now we have 8 strings installed, and 4 on one side, 4 on the other. So it's a nice even pattern. We're putting even weight on both sides and so forth. So now this time I'll go back to the other side, and in this case now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to be starting to run into cross strings. So if you If the racket has been strung before, it's probably going to be easier for you to spot where the cross strings are because the holes are going to be kind of pointing more towards the cross. If it's brand new frame, then you're going to just kind of have to look for a hole that looks like it's a little bit closer or a little bit farther away. And that just comes with time. Now, a lot of times, if it's your racket and you're restringing it, before you cut the strings out, take a look at what the pattern looks like and count, and then write down which are the cross strings. And most of the manufacturers actually have that on their website if it's a racket that's still in production. But there are sites and places you can get that, and I'll share that information in another video as well. So, all right, so we're going to go ahead and finish off this side. And right now we have not run into any cross strings, and you can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now the next one you can see it's pointing the other direction. So I'm going to go ahead and skip that one. And then I see another one going straight up this way, and I'm going to also skip. Many times when you're skipping the top, you're also skipping the bottom. Not always though, because that's not always the case, but in this case it is. So now you can see we have most of these installed, and again we have one more that we're skipping, and we can see right there the way that it's pointing that way, and then the bottom also one pointing that way, so I'm going to skip that. And so now with this particular racket, the strings are all pretty much the same distance apart. As you do get to the last one, it looks like it might be just a little bit, and you can see that there's a good foot of string left on one side, and that's going to be important because you're going to need that as you pull the last one, and then as you're tying it off and so forth. So you do need you don't need quite this much string, but as you're beginning and starting out, it's good to have that. And now because we did a two-piece, and this is we're just stringing the mains, we cut the string exactly in half, so the other half should be come out exactly like this or close to it, right? So again, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Again, being aware of the strings that we have to skip, and in this racket, because it has been strung before, we're able to actually find that pretty easily. So I'm going to go ahead and find that hole pretty easily there, and we're going to put that through, and then we skipped one there on the top and the bottom, and now we're end up on the top, and there we go. So now here we have about a little over a foot on both sides, so that's going to be perfect. And so you can see we have all the main strings in here, and then later on what we're going to do is we're going to find the correct hole where we're going to tie this off. And most rackets do have rackets do have 4 designated tie-offs, but you can alter that as needed for different variations if you have different string patterns, or maybe you might have a hole that has a tubing in it because you're protecting one of the grommets, and then you have to find another hole, and then we'll get into that as far as racket repair and also creating a new tie-off hole. I'll make some videos on that, but right now it's just important to note we're going to be looking for the tie-off on the bottom. The mains are going to tie off on the bottom, and they're actually going to tie off on another main string. So because we don't have any cross strings in the racket, and you're not going to use one of the open holes to tie off. It just does not work. So it's actually going to be, there's 2 options here, the next main down or 2 down. Now this racket was designed to go 2 down, and sometimes you can tell because the hole is bigger and the string goes in there a little bit easier. So it's going to be that one. And so you can see you've got about that much on the outside. I'm going to go ahead and just put the string in where it's supposed to be tied off, so you can kind of get an idea. So really that's how much string you have left to work on your tie-off knots. And so we'll work on those tie-off knots once we actually install this. So I encourage you to take some time, put the main strings in, take them back out, practice putting them back in a couple times so you get comfortable with that, so you get comfortable with your racket. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start tensioning on the next video. So I hope that was helpful for you, and that's all we have for today. All right, thanks, and we'll see you in the next video.